Hello everyone, I am in the South Colony Basin in southern Colorado, Sangre de Cristo Wilderness. And tomorrow morning, I'll be doing the Crestone Peak to Needle Traverse. As always, I want to give a disclaimer. Climbing is inherently dangerous. Obviously, I don't know your skill level or your experience. I can't make your risk assessment for you. But what I hope to do is to give you video to help you make that assessment as well as to help you navigate. My tentative plan for tomorrow is to leave slightly before sunrise. I'll be going up over Broken Hand Pass, down to Cottonwood Lake, and then ascending the southern face of Crestone Peak. From there, traversing over to Crestone Needle, and then down the south of Crestone Needle back to Broken Hand Pass. I'm camped just a few hundred feet from the South Colony Lake, and from here it will be, I think, less than a mile up to Broken Hand Pass. The approach was pretty straightforward. The only thing worth mentioning is that you'd need a high clearance vehicle to get to the upper trailhead. And from there it's about a 4-mile walk into where I am now. As for me, I parked at the lower trailhead. It added an extra 2.5 miles onto the trip, so it was about 6.5 miles total walking in here. But as I just said, if you can get to the upper trailhead, you can cut 2.5 miles off of that. It only took a few hours to walk in here. However, I did opt for an early start because, while there are a lot of campsites here, it is a Friday on a 3-day weekend in Colorado, so I'm expecting plenty of other campers by the time the evening comes. As of right now, there's still plenty of open spots. It is shortly before sunrise. I'm standing on the west side of Broken Hand Pass and approaching Cottonwood Lake. Now, I went over the pass in the dark, but I'll be descending that same way. So I'll get some footage of it on the way down for anyone who's interested. From where I'm standing now, the trail is pretty clear. I'll be passing Cottonwood Lake on the right, and then I'll be turning to my right and up a gully toward Crestone Peak. I'm just a few minutes walking past the Cottonwood Lake, and now Crestone Peak is coming into view. Have a pretty good view of the red gully that I'll be ascending from here. I'm moving into the red gully. Up until here, there's been a pretty well-defined trail. So, unless you're walking this in the dark or in deep snow, it should be easy to navigate up until here. I'm standing around 13,700 feet, and I just located a couple of cairns signaling the start of the traverse on my right. So I'm gonna have to remember this spot, and after I hit the Crestone Peak, I'll have to backtrack to here. Just topped out the red gully. From here, I'll be turning to the left toward the summit of Crestone Peak. I can see a couple cairns already marking the trail. It's been pretty straightforward getting up to here. Just pay attention to some loose rock and be mindful that there's lots of other climbers here. On the summit of Crestone Peak, it was actually a lot shorter from the top of the gully to here than I expected. Walk on the left side of the ridge probably wasn't even 5 minutes. Felt like easy class 3 mostly, though I know the hard part's still ahead of us. I have backtracked several hundred feet down the gully, and here on my left, on the east side of the gully, I can see the cairns leading me around the side of the ridge. It's actually a lot easier to see the start of the traverse when you are descending. Out of the red gully and onto the traverse ridge. So far there's a ton of cairns and even a little bit of a footpath. So even though we're only a few minutes in, it's easy to navigate, at least these first few minutes. 14ers.com, it was a great resource for doing this traverse. Highly recommended. A lot of great descriptions and great photos. And they said avoid getting too high on the ridge here. And yeah, by the looks of it, much better to stay low. The first rock rib from the description is in view. I've set my sights on the little notch I'm aiming for in the rock. Plus there's still a little trail and a lot of cairns here. So shouldn't be too hard to find. After the first rib, I'm dropping down again into another red gully. And from where I'm standing here, I can see a trail leading up to the left into a small couloir once we get across the gully. If you have any doubt, there are some cairns leading the way into this gully. A lot of loose rock in here, but not too steep. Partway up the loose couloir, I turned to the right a little bit. I wasn't sure for a minute if I was on the right path, but then I found another cairn. Where I'm standing now is a good view back the way that I came. I have traversed around the next rock rib, and from where I'm standing, I can see up to the Black Gendarme. So we'll want to stay to the right of that. But just before there, there's another little drop into a gully, and then up the other side. I am at the short class 5 pitch at the base of the Black Gendarme. Really wasn't too difficult. I stayed to the right. I thought the handholds there were a little bit better, but even if I had gone more left, it still wouldn't have been too bad. There are a couple of rocks on the right side of the pitch up at the top. They looked like they wouldn't hold me, and they held me just fine. So, made it pretty easy. Up the short couloir to the right side of the Black Gendarme, and at the top, cut back to the right, and then you pass over the knife edge, which is short and also exposed. And just after the knife edge, move up on a ledge to the left. There's an alternate path going to the right, but I see a cairn in front of me, so I'm going to stay on this path. Okay, I just popped around another rib, and I'm looking at a big white stone on the south face of the Crestone Needle. And I'm going to use that as my marker to turn up a gully. I'm going to walk just a little bit past the stone and then turn to the left. Just before the top of the gully, I cut back right again. And as always, there's a few cairns and a little footpath to let me know that I'm on the right track. Cut back to the left yet again after a short walk. And I think I'm closing in on the headwall here, but not certain yet. Yep, I think this is exactly where I want to be. I know there are multiple routes to do this. My initial instinct here is saying stay to the left. So let's try it and see what happens. So far so good. Found a little resting point in the middle, and I'm still staying near the left. Working good for me. Just under the summit of Crestone Needle. The head wall, I thought, not as bad as it usually looks in the photos. Also, not quite as long as I expected. Of course, it is very exposed, but hand and footholds are good. Just maintain 3 points of contact, and in my opinion, probably stay to the left. Summit of Crestone Needle, looking back over at Crestone Peak. Thankfully, it's a nice day and it's early. I don't have to rush down. Yeah, I'll say it again. That could have been really difficult to navigate if I didn't have the resources that I did. Once again, 14ers.com made this really easy. And also, whoever put all those cairns up, there's probably 100 of them, but saved me a ton of time coming over here. Made this a really straightforward trip. So I appreciate you, whoever you are. I am leaving the summit of Crestone Needle. I don't always enjoy descending a peak that I haven't climbed yet, but as of right now, there's a climber's path and also a lot of cairns. So we're off to a good start. A couple of places with scrambling involved, but otherwise mostly a straight shot down into this couloir on the south of Crestone Needle. I didn't realize coming down here at first that I was in the couloir further west, which is not a big deal. I just had to find the cairns to traverse over. First I went down a little bit too far. I noticed there weren't any more cairns. So come back up and then cut a little bit over to the east. Easier going here in the couloir further east. I'm seeing a lot of cairns again. And also I'm able to see my route down to Broken Hand Pass. Descending the east face of Broken Hand Pass. A little bit of a scramble, but I came up here in the dark and there's a pretty well-defined trail for most of the way. I didn't have any major problems navigating when it was dark here. All right, back in the South Colony Basin. I actually brought enough food for another night, just in case this weather turned bad. But the weather's looking so good today that I'm gonna walk out this afternoon. Anyway, that was the Crestone Traverse. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it useful for planning your own trip. As always, I'd love your feedback. What did you like? What can I do different? And what other mountains would you like to see? All right, bye.